What started as just another frustrating afternoon for Bubba Wallace at Watkins Glen International turned into one of the most talked about moments of the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season. And it had nothing to do with what happened during the race itself. After the checkered flag fell on Sunday's Go Bowling at the Glen, Fox Sports cameras captured Wallace and Christopher Bell standing face-to-face on pit road in what looked like one of the most intense confrontations we've seen between drivers this year. Wallace was animated, clearly upset, gesturing with his hands and visibly working through something. Bell stood there calmly, mostly listening, occasionally responding. The moment Wallace started to walk away, Bell said something that brought him right back for another round of conversation. Crew members watched from a distance. And within minutes, the clip was all over social media with NASCAR fans immediately divided, some defending Bell, others criticizing Wallace, and most people just trying to figure out what actually happened. But here's where the story gets interesting. By the end of the night, Wallace's own spotter, Freddie Kraft, stepped in publicly and said something that completely flipped the entire narrative. What he revealed changed how this whole situation should actually be understood. But to get there, we need to start with the race itself, because what happened on the track is the only reason any of this matters. Shane van Gisbergen absolutely dominated Sunday at Watkins Glen. He started from pole position and controlled massive portions of the race. Even after a late green flag pit cycle dropped him nearly 30 seconds behind the leader, SVG carved through the field like the race was always meant to be his. With 7 laps remaining, he passed Gibbs for the lead and never looked back. Van Gisbergen won by over 7 seconds ahead of Michael McDowell, with Gibbs finishing third, Chase Briscoe fourth, and Tyler Reddick rounding out the top 5. For the leaders up front, it was a clean, dominant performance. But further back in the field, things were messy. Christopher Bell started 8th but finished 21st, his 6th finish outside the top 10 in the last 7 races. It's been a rough stretch for the number 20 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. Bell has the talent and the equipment, but the results just haven't been there lately. As for Bubba Wallace in the number 23-23-11 Racing Toyota, he actually showed some promise early on. He scored a stage point late in Stage 2, narrowly beating Ross Chastain to the line. But what came next erased any momentum he had built. With 14 laps to go, Wallace was running inside the top 20 when AJ Allmendinger moved to his inside heading into Turn 1. Wallace gave way to the Colleague Racing driver and tried to slot in behind him. That's when John Hunter Nemechek drove deep into the corner and made contact with Wallace's right rear, spinning him around. Wallace came over the radio immediately, clearly frustrated. Fox cameras caught the aftermath of the spin but never showed the actual contact that caused it. Nemechek, meanwhile, drove through the field and finished 10th, his best result of the 2026 season so far. But for Wallace, that spin destroyed any chance at a decent finish and dropped him toward the back of the field. Then came the moment that set everything else in motion. With 8 laps to go, Wallace's team called him to pit road. At that exact moment, Christopher Bell and Todd Gilliland were right on his bumper coming out of the carousel. Bell got a run to Wallace's right side heading into Turn 6. According to reports, Bell's team told him that the number 23 was pitting, but that message came through just as Bell was already pulling alongside Wallace. The two ran side by side through the corner sequence with Bell on the inside. Wallace couldn't just cut across Bell's nose without risking a wreck, so he had to lift, slow down, and let Bell, Gilliland, and Riley Herbst pass before he could even make it to pit entry. Now on paper, that might seem like a minor inconvenience. But inside the car, in the final laps of a race that had already gone sideways, it felt like everything. Wallace had already been wrecked by Nemechek. He'd already lost track position. He was trying to execute a clean pit stop in the closing laps of a frustrating race, and suddenly he had 3 cars blocking his path to pit road at the worst possible moment. That's the emotional context that most people on social media never waited around to understand. After the race, Fox cameras found Wallace and Bell near pit road, and what they captured looked nothing like a friendly post-race chat between 2 Toyota teammates. Wallace was visibly heated, talking with his hands, clearly working through something that had been building all afternoon. Bell, staying true to his reputation as one of the most level-headed guys in the garage, stood there calmly. He listened. He responded. Then Wallace turned and started to walk away. But Bell said something that made Wallace come right back for another moment of conversation. The Fox broadcast booth noticed it immediately. Mike Joy said on air, "Bubba Wallace and Christopher Bell had a few words after this one." Kevin Harvick added, "I don't think we're good right here." Joy replied, "But they'll sort it out." That exchange from Harvick, calm, direct, loaded with implication, basically captured what the entire viewing audience was thinking. Because when two drivers stand face to face after a race with that kind of body language, fans don't wait for context. They react. The clip hit social media almost instantly, and the reaction was immediate and divided. Some fans jumped to defend Bell. Others used the moment to unload on Wallace with criticisms that went way beyond anything that happened at Watkins Glen. One fan wrote, "I forgot everyone is supposed to hurt their own lap times just for Bubba." Another comment went further, "Christopher Bell has forgotten more about racing than Bubba will ever know. He's been in the best equipment for years and gets embarrassed by his teammate every week." That comment is worth noting because it shows exactly how quickly the actual racing incident disappeared from the conversation. Instead of debating pit entry timing and communication breakdowns, some fans turned it into a referendum on Wallace's entire career, his equipment, and his performance compared to teammate Tyler Reddick, who's been dominant in 2026 with multiple wins and the points lead. Another fan added, "So what's the drama? Is Bell supposed to let the two cars behind him pass while he gives Bubba room to stay in front of him to the pit entry? Hell no." That argument actually had some racing logic behind it. Bell wasn't alone on track. He had cars behind him. If he'd braked early or given up space, he would have lost time and positions himself. From a purely competitive standpoint, Bell taking the run was just racing. Other comments kept piling up. If he was being called to pit road, it's his responsibility to get out of the way of cars still racing. Another said, "You'll see that Bubba had no reason to be mad at Bell." And then there were comments that got more personal. "Bubba's upset he can't win in the best equipment. Who gives a damn about Bubba? He just sucks." Whether you agree with those takes or not, this is the pattern that follows Wallace almost every time he appears in a post-race situation. The incident itself becomes secondary. The conversation becomes about Bubba. Fox Sports also caught criticism in all of this. Because there was no audio from the confrontation, no immediate explanation from either driver, and no full replay of what actually caused Wallace's frustration during the race, fans were left to fill in the blanks themselves. One user posted, "We may never know because Fox sucks." That frustration wasn't isolated. The network had already drawn complaints throughout the race for missing the start of the Nemechek spin, the Cody Ware crash into the tire barrier, Corey LaJoie running out of fuel, and Josh Berry getting tagged by Cole Custer before his final lap incident with Carson Hocevar. When a broadcaster misses that many moments in a single race, fan trust erodes. And in situations like the Wallace-Bell confrontation, the absence of clear information makes speculation the loudest voice in the room. The most grounded reaction online came from reporter Steven Taranto, who laid out the pit road sequence carefully without pretending to have all the answers. He wrote, "Okay, here's what I think Bubba Wallace might have been upset with Christopher Bell over. Coming to 8 to go, Bubba was called to pit road in the Esse's past turn 1 with Bell and Todd Gilliland on his bumper. But coming out of the carousel, Bell got a run to Bubba's right side, and the 20 team didn't inform him that the 23 was pitting until Bell was alongside him. It put Bubba in a tough spot getting to pit road, as he couldn't just try to cut across Bell's nose." Taranto also noted, "I didn't hear Bubba say any cross word towards Bell over his radio, so it's hard to know definitively." That kind of honest, evidence-based reaction was rare in a sea of hot takes. But it was also the only one that acknowledged what nobody else seemed willing to admit, that the full picture was still missing. And that's exactly where Freddie Kraft came in. Kraft is Wallace's spotter and one of his closest allies in the garage. He's on the radio with Wallace throughout every lap of every race. He hears what his driver says, knows what his driver is feeling, and was present for the entire sequence of events that led to that pit road conversation. So when Kraft saw the speculation building online, fans constructing a Bell vs. Wallace rivalry out of a post-race clip with no audio, he stepped in publicly on X with a short, direct correction. Freddie Kraft wrote, "You shouldn't speculate. Bubba wasn't mad at Bell." That one sentence dismantled the entire viral narrative. If Wallace's own spotter is saying Wallace wasn't upset with Bell, then the confrontation wasn't what it looked like. Maybe Wallace was walking Bell through the pit road sequence, explaining how the timing unfolded from inside the number 23 car. Maybe he was venting about the overall situation, the Nemechek spin, the lost track position, the frustrating finish, and Bell just happened to be the person standing nearby. Maybe the body language read far more aggressively on a broadcast camera than it actually was in person. Whatever the real explanation, Kraft's statement made it clear that the story social media had already decided to tell wasn't the accurate one. This is a pattern worth recognizing. A camera captures a heated-looking exchange. Fans immediately choose sides. Media pages frame it as drama. Then someone with direct, first-hand knowledge steps in and says the framing is wrong. It happens in NASCAR regularly. And it happens to Wallace more than almost anyone else in the sport, because he's one of the most emotionally visible drivers on the grid. He doesn't hide frustration. He doesn't wait until he's cooled down to process a bad race. And because of that, every animated conversation he has becomes a headline, regardless of what was actually being said. Stepping back from the confrontation itself, the bigger issue for Wallace leaving Watkins Glen is the result. Starting 18th and finishing 29th is not what the number 23 team needed at this point in the season. Wallace currently sits 10th in the Cup Series standings, just 2 points ahead of Bell at 11th. With the regular season playoff push building and teammate Reddick dominating the wins column, Wallace needs consistent results, not DNFs and late race spins. Every race that ends like Sunday puts more pressure on the races that follow. For Bell, the situation isn't much different. 6 finishes outside the top 10 in 7 races is a stretch that can't continue if the number 20 team wants to maintain a comfortable playoff position. Bell is the defending All-Star race winner, and the next event on the schedule is the NASCAR All-Star race at Dover Motor Speedway, a track where he has history. But history only matters if the equipment and execution are there. And both have been inconsistent for Joe Gibbs Racing's number 20 program recently. As for the relationship between the two drivers, there's no evidence from anything available that it's been damaged. These are two drivers connected through the Toyota Alliance. They race under the same manufacturer umbrella. Post-race conversations between Alliance teammates happen constantly. Most of them never get caught on a broadcast camera. This one did. And it looked intense. And that was enough for the internet to run with it for an entire news cycle. But Freddie Kraft had the final word on what it actually meant. Was Bubba Wallace yelling at Christopher Bell? The video certainly looked that way. Was Wallace actually mad at Bell? Freddie Kraft says no. And until either driver says something different in the days ahead, that's the most informed and most credible answer available. The confrontation happened. The frustration was real. The finish was bad. But the feud that social media tried to build out of it? That part was never there. If you made it this far, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the latest NASCAR news, breakdowns, and analysis. We cover everything from race recaps to driver drama to playoff implications, all from a fan's perspective. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think really happened between Bubba and Bell at Watkins Glen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.